Does post-ignition movement actually create any effect out of a handgun barrel in terms of change of effect on target of the shot that just fired?
I mean, it shouldn't, right?
Right.
Which is the idea.
Shouldn't for the shot that just fired.
Yep.
Now, of course, if, however, we're doing a string of fire, it's okay, that's more I've got to fix between that shot and the next shot, potentially. Yep. So it's something, so thinking about, that caused me to think about that and smooth out and work on my bill drills, my series of shots a little more. To think about what's happening in between. The misses, of course, though, are pre-ignition movement. That's one of the things that has the largest, the misunderstanding. And it amazes me, let me grab a dummy gun here. It amazes me because people will do this demonstration and then tell you it means something. And I think the demonstration absolutely proves something completely different than what they're claiming it does. So the demonstration we're talking about, you're probably familiar with, is they have somebody aim in, and I am going to simulate recoil by striking your hand. And you want to maintain a perfect sight picture. All right, so you're maintaining perfect sight picture, and we have recoil, and we have recoil, and we don't have any actual impact, but the body tensed up in anticipation to hold the gun down in anticipation and to brace the body in anticipation. And they'll tell you, see, that's trigger jerk. Well, your finger wasn't pulling the trigger.
No.
And I usually have people, I tell them, keep your finger in the index position. And it does exactly the same thing. So their finger isn't even on the trigger when that's happening. Yet they're seeing what they call trigger jerk. Well, obviously words have meaning, and those words aren't helping us because that has nothing to do with your finger on the trigger. Your finger isn't even on the trigger when we do the drill. Let's try it. Put your finger up in the index position. So again, it's you're reacting to me striking, not to... So what role, may I take the gun? What role does the trigger finger actually play? The trigger finger signals to the brain, hey, there's about to be an explosion. That's what actually happens, is subconsciously, internally, your primitive brain, as I call it, notices every time you do this, there's an explosion at arm's reach. Well, part of the job of the primitive brain is to protect the body, protect sensitive things like the eyes, of course, slam them shut immediately. And what would be a great survival reflex for an explosion in front of your face? Slam your eyes shut and get away from it. You'll also find that right-handed people have done this without telling at all what we're doing, a clap or whatever, a loud noise, a flash of light in front of them. Right-handed people tend to flinch down and to the left. They flinch this way. They don't flinch this way very often, except if it's coming from underneath them. And for whatever reason, right-handed tends to go left. Left-handed tends to go right. Nothing to do with a gun. You don't even have a gun in your hand when I'm doing that. So now we see flinch in a handgun, and guess what? It goes down and to the right. Well, if this is your natural flinch, and you put a gun in your hand and you flinch, where'd the gun just go? Down and to the right. What did it have to do with? Well, your primitive brain notices every time you do this, there's an explosion. Primitive brain says, hey, will you quit doing that? I don't like it. I don't like explosions in front of my face. Higher brain says, hey, we're doing something here. Just be quiet. I got this. I'm a pro. Right? How many times have we heard that, right? I'm a pro. Just shut up and go with the plan. Primitive brain puts up with it for a while. Then after a while goes, no, my job is protect you, and I'm going to, and I'm going to slam my eyes shut. So all this stress on how you manipulate the trigger, what it actually does, in my opinion, is it gives your brain something else to think about versus knowing when the trigger is about to go off and flinching. It basically is a diversion. And you can do it through various mantra. Back in the early days, it was front sight, front sight, front sight. Now it's keep pressing, keep pressing, keep pressing, according to some people. Other people, it's something else. The words there don't appear to be super important. And again, we're not inducing the movement via the trigger. We're giving the signal to flinch via movement of the trigger. So that point, I think to your point, is post-ignition movement may not be a negative. That's
correct. And I think some people are arguing that there's movement, that's a bad thing. That's been said historically for a long time. Now there are people coming along saying, no, that's a good thing because it's post-ignition movement. The thing that I am...
In live fire, the target will tell.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm trying to... Like you might have movements, and if your group size is really big, or a lot of it is down here if you're a right-handed shooter, it's not post-ignition movement. Like you suck, and you should work on it, and you have a flinching and or trigger control issue that you, or both, that you need to work through. And there can be movement, but like the truth is the accuracy standard, right? The feedback is the target tells you what you did as a shooter, and if the target is not giving you the feedback you want, then you need to alter what you're doing as a shooter.
Sure.
And it is I guess it's an exploratory process, because it's always going to vary from one shooter to the other of what they're doing wrong, and then what drill or exercise will reveal that to them, right? So physically, the manipulation of the body and what you're doing, and then mentally, like that makes sense.
So now you're at another interesting point for me, and that is what drill or exercise will help. And in my mind, that a lot of that depends on the level of the student. And for example, if the student is not flinching, their eyes are staying open, they will see the movement of the sight. And they can learn a lot from a true mixed ball and dummy magazine. And I'll load up 3 or 4 magazines, just mix of live and dummy rounds. And I can then see the movement of the gun and see, did it go up a little? Did it go, where did it go? If the student is flinching, and flinching almost always involves blinking, which then they're not going to see the movement, and they don't benefit as much from that. They may still benefit, but they're going to benefit differently.
So you think fix the eye problem before the flinching problem? Or
well,
because they're related.
Exactly. Because I mean, we blink how many times a minute, and of course, anything rapidly coming toward our face, various things will create a blink. So that is one of the most natural and consistent flinches, is a blink in response to anything startled. So that's one that we've got to address early.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that.